Welcome to swords and hammers. Truth comes clothed in tales, and the soul remembers what the mind alone forgets. The world is loud, but for the next few minutes, it can wait. Take a moment. Settle yourself. Listen well. Come, let us begin. The Accuser's Last Trial. A Tale of 3 Witnesses. Part 1. The Prosecutor's Perfect Case. In the great hall where all souls must finally stand, there gathered a tribunal unlike any earthly court. The walls breathed with a light that revealed everything and concealed nothing. In this hall, shadows had no place to hide, and every thought that had ever crossed a mind hung visible in the air like suspended drops of rain. The defendant stood alone. She was neither young nor old, neither beautiful nor plain. She was everyone and anyone. Perhaps she was you. Around her neck hung the weight of years. A mother's sharp word spoken in exhaustion. A friend betrayed for 30 pieces of acceptance. 1,000 small cruelties done in the name of being right. These were not metaphors. In this place, sins had substance. They clinked against each other like chains. The prosecutor entered with the confidence of one who had never lost a case. He was magnificent in his accuracy. His robes were woven from 10,000 truths, uncomfortable truths, the kind people spend their lives avoiding. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of fact. "Shall we begin with Tuesday?" he asked, and his smile was terrible in its kindness. "You remember Tuesday, when your neighbor came to your door, carrying her grief like a bowl of water about to spill. And you pretended not to be home. The defendant's lawyer was nowhere to be seen. Or perhaps," the prosecutor continued, spreading documents across his table like a dealer laying out cards, "we should start with your childhood. That first conscious lie. You were 7. You broke your mother's belonging and blamed your brother. Shall I read the transcript of your thoughts in that moment? The precise calculation of your deception?" Each word was a scalpel, and each cut was clean. The prosecutor did not need to embellish. The truth was damning enough. Hour after hour, he built his case with the patience of a master craftsman. Every selfish prayer, every moment of enjoyed gossip, every time she had chosen comfort over compassion, safety over sacrifice. "The law is clear," he said, and just above them, the law itself became visible. It was not words on stone, but something alive, beautiful, and terrible. "The soul that sins shall die. The wages of sin is death. And here," he gestured to mountains of evidence, "we have a lifetime of wages earned." The strangest thing was that the defendant found herself nodding. Yes, it was all true. Every word. She had no defense to offer because she had no innocence to claim. The prosecutor was not lying. That was his terrible power. He was telling the truth. In the galleries above, witnesses leaned forward. They recognized this scene. They had stood in that same dock, felt that same crushing weight of accuracy. Some still bore the scars of their own trials. Others waited their turn. The judge's bench remained elevated and distant, wreathed in a glory that hurt to perceive directly. From that throne came neither word nor movement. The trial continued. "I call my first witness," the prosecutor announced, "the defendant herself." And here was the cruelest cut. She was compelled to testify against herself. Her own mouth spoke her condemnations. Her own voice recited the litany of her failures. Every excuse she had ever made crumbled before it could form. In this court, self-deception was impossible. "I was afraid," she heard herself saying about that Tuesday. I was afraid of my neighbor's pain, afraid I would say the wrong thing, afraid her grief would touch mine, and I would have to feel it again. Fear, the prosecutor repeated, savoring the word. Yes, you have been afraid your entire life, afraid of judgment, so you judged first, afraid of rejection, so you rejected first, afraid of being known, so you hid behind 1,000 small performances. The chains grew heavier. Part 2. The blood that speaks. Just when the silence had become unbearable, just when the defendant was about to speak the only words left to her, guilty, guilty, guilty. A door opened that had not been there before. The one who entered was difficult to perceive clearly. He was scarred, that much was certain. His hands, his feet, his side, all bore wounds that had not healed, that would never heal, that were meant to never heal. Yet he walked with the authority of one who had already won every battle that mattered. "I invoke the ancient right," he said, and his voice was both whisper and thunder. The right of substitution. The prosecutor's perfect composure cracked for just a moment. A fissure of rage quickly sealed. "You cannot. The law is the law. She has earned her wages." "I agree," said the scarred one, and he moved to the defendant's side. "The wages must be paid. The law must be satisfied." He turned to the throne. "I offer my death for hers, my blood for her blood, my perfect record for her broken one." "That was centuries ago," the prosecutor snarled, and for the first time his voice held something other than cold fact. "That blood was spilled on a hill far from here. It has nothing to do with Tuesday, nothing to do with her specific sins, her particular failures." The scarred one smiled then, and it was the smile of someone sharing a secret that would remake the world. He held out his hands, and the wounds were fresh, bleeding now, in this moment, in this eternal present. "My blood is not trapped in history," he said. "It speaks now. It speaks here. It speaks specifically to Tuesday, to the broken belonging, to every documented failure you have so carefully catalogued. My blood doesn't argue that she is innocent. My blood declares that her debt is paid." The prosecutor's documents began to change. The ink that had been black turned red. The ledger of debts became a receipt of payment. The evidence of guilt became evidence of a transaction completed. But the prosecutor had faced this move before. He had other strategies. "Even if the blood covers the past," he hissed, "she remains what she is. Weak. Faithless. She will fail again tomorrow. Next Tuesday, she will hide again from pain. Next month, she will choose comfort over compassion. The blood may cover sin, but it cannot change a sinner." The scarred one turned to the defendant. "He speaks truly of your weakness. But he lies about what blood can do. My blood not only covers, it transforms. It is not merely a payment, but a power. Not just a pardon, but a provision." And then he did something unexpected. He took a cloth, and then dipped it in his own blood, and began to wash the defendant's chains. Where the blood touched, iron became light. Not removed, but transformed. The chains remained, but they were no longer chains of bondage. They had become something else. Reminders, testimonies, stories of redemption. "Now," said the scarred one, "speak." Part 3. The testimony of the weak. The defendant found she had a voice after all, but it was different now. It was not the voice that had condemned herself. It was not the voice that had made excuses. It was something new, or perhaps something finally true. "I was guilty," she said, and the prosecutor leaned forward eagerly. But she continued, "I am guilty. Everything you have said about me is true. but it is not the only truth. I am guilty, but I am also washed. I am weak, but he is strong in my weakness. I failed on Tuesday, but his mercies are new every morning, new every day. The prosecutor recoiled as if struck. Words, he spat. Pretty words. But what about next time? What about tomorrow's sin? What about the next neighbor at your door? And here, something shifted in the defendant's posture. She stood straighter, not because her burden was gone, but because she had learned how to carry it. Next time, she said, I will answer the door. Not because I'm brave, but because his perfect love casts out fear. Not because I am compassionate, but because my Lord's compassion flows through me. I testify not to my strength, but to his. I testify not to my goodness, but to his blood. The prosecutor played his final card. And what about when they come for you? When standing for this truth costs everything? When they offer you life, if you will only deny what happened here today? You love your life too much. You will recant. You will fail. You always fail. The defendant looked at her chains, transformed now into light, and then at the scarred one beside her. She thought of all the small deaths she had been dying since his blood first touched her chains. The death of pride when she apologized to her brother 40 years late. The death of safety when she finally opened the door to her neighbor's pain. The death of control when she stopped trying to earn what had already been freely given. You may be right, she said to the prosecutor. I may fail. But if I do, his blood will speak louder than my failure. And if they come for my life, she paused, feeling the weight and wonder of the words. I have been practicing dying every day since I met him. Death has become my friend, because death is the door to life. The prosecutor stood frozen, his mouth open but no words emerging. What threat could he make to one who no longer feared death? What accusation could he bring to one who had already confessed everything and found herself loved anyway? What power did he have over someone who counted their life as already lost and therefore had nothing left to lose? The transformation was not dramatic. The defendant did not become a different person. She remained herself, afraid but brave, weak but strong, guilty but free. The difference was that she no longer stood alone. The scarred one stood with her, in her, through her. I call my witness, she said, and her voice carried new authority. I call everyone who has ever discovered that their worst moment was not their last moment. I call everyone who has learned that weakness is the beginning of strength. I call everyone who has found that dying is the path to living. Then, from the galleries far above, there came a sound like rain, not applause, but something better. Tears, stories, testimonies, each one different, each one the same. I was dead, but now I live. I was lost, but now I'm found. I was accused, but now I'm free. The prosecutor gathered his documents, but they had all turned to ash. His truths remained true, but they had been overwhelmed by a greater truth. His facts remained factual, but they had been subsumed by a larger story. He left the way he came, magnificent still, but defeated, accurate but irrelevant. The defendant turned to the scarred one. What shall I do now? Now, he said. You go back to Tuesday. Know this. There will be another knock at your door, another opportunity to hide or to open, another chance to die to fear and live to love. And when you fail, not if, but when, my blood will still speak. My wounds will still be fresh. My victory will still be yours. She understood then that the trial was not ending, but beginning. Every day would be a courtroom. Every choice would be a testimony. Every death would be a victory. The prosecutor would return with new evidence, new accusations, new threats. But she would meet him with blood that spoke louder than accusation, with testimony that grew stronger through weakness, with a love that had conquered the fear of death itself. As she left the great hall, she noticed her chains had not disappeared. They had become her armor, light, flexible, beautiful. Each link told a story of failure transformed to victory. Each weight had become a wing. Behind her, the scarred one remained in the court. There would be another defendant soon, another perfect prosecution, another opportunity for blood to speak its better word. The trial continues. It continues in your everyday choices, in your everyday deaths and resurrections. The prosecutor still makes his cases, still tells his truths, still threatens his threats. But for those who have learned the threefold secret, the blood that speaks, the testimony of weakness becoming strength, the freedom found in letting go of life itself, his perfect prosecutions always end the same way. In victory disguised as defeat, in strength perfected in weakness, in life that springs from death. The accuser's last trial is always his first defeat. Selah.